Welcome to Pluralsight. My name is Julie Lerman, and you may know me as one of the most recognized authorities in the world on Entity Framework Core, Microsoft's data access platform for .NET developers. I'm so happy to share with you the latest iteration of Entity Framework Core Fundamentals, which I've thoroughly updated for EF Core 8. If you're already using an earlier version of EF Core or even EF6, this course will update your existing knowledge to quickly get up to speed on the fundamentals. If you're brand new to any version, this course will take you much further than standard beginner demos to help you be productive with EF Core in your projects. Whether you're building software with .NET to run on Windows, Mac, or Linux, or even in the cloud, you can use EF Core for your data access. In this course, you'll learn how to build and interact with data models using a simple console application, and set up logging to gain insights into how EF Core is interacting with your database. You'll learn how to get EF Core to use your own database logic, such as stored procedures, and how to invoke EF Core in your automated testing. We'll then use EF Core in an ASP.NET Core API, which any front end can connect to. While this course will use Visual Studio 2022 on Windows, these lessons will apply to any of the environments or IDEs where you can build .NET applications. EF Core Fundamentals will prepare you to be a productive member of your .NET development team. Hello, I'm Julie Lerman. Welcome to Entity Framework Core Fundamentals. I'm so happy you've come to Pluralsight to start your learning journey on EF Core. I've been a recognized expert in Entity Framework and EF Core for a long time. I've written books on it and created a lot of courses right here on Pluralsight in the past. So you're in good hands here. This course was created using Entity Framework Core 8. EF Core 8 will not run on any earlier version of .NET than .NET 8. Therefore, the course was also created using .NET 8, Visual Studio 2022 version 17.8, and C# 12. The course does not apply to earlier versions of EF Core or to Entity Framework 6. If you're working with those earlier versions of EF Core or even EF6, you might want to check out some of my older courses, which you can still find on my author page. If you're planning to follow along with the exercises, you can download before and after solutions from the Exercise Files tab for this course on Pluralsight, but I've also uploaded them all to GitHub on my GitHub account at this link. In this course, you'll learn about EF Core, Microsoft's cross-platform framework for accessing data in .NET applications. We'll focus on the basics, but you'll leave with practical knowledge for using EF Core in the software you build in your day-to-day job, not just for building demos. You'll start this course by building a simple application from scratch that performs some basic data access with EF Core. After this quick demo, you'll get to work learning about various ways of using EF Core to persist data that you're inserting, updating, deleting, and of course querying back from the database in your applications. With that in hand, you'll see how to control EF Core's ability to create a database and keep its schema up to date based on the model in your software. It will be useful to use EF Core's logging capabilities to have a better understanding of what kind of SQL EF Core is building, so you'll definitely learn how to implement logging. And the logging will be beneficial as we dig more deeply into interacting with the database, defining and persisting various relationship types like many-to-many and one-to-one. While EF Core is focused on generating SQL on your behalf, it also gives you the power to benefit from your own views and stored procedures and other objects in your database. So you'll learn how to work with these capabilities as well. The application you'll work with up until this point will be a simple .NET console app. But then you'll see how EF Core integrates with ASP.NET Core applications. After this, you'll get a look at features that EF Core provides to make testing easier when your tests involve data persistence. Before wrapping up the course, I do want to be sure that you can be productive with EF Core after watching this course. So I'll make sure you're aware of some more features and techniques that will be important in your day-to-day work, such as mappings, database connectivity, and tapping into EF Core's pipeline. Then you'll be able to follow up with other courses in the EF Core path to deepen your expertise and gain true mastery of EF Core. In this first module, we'll start with a very quick overview of EF Core, then dive right into Visual Studio 2022. You'll start with a small solution that I pre-created for you. It's in the Before download for this module. Then I'll walk you through adding another project to that solution to focus on using EF Core to mediate between the app and a database. You'll learn how to get the correct EF Core APIs into a project that's designed for data persistence, and then build up a data model using those APIs and the business classes in that pre-created solution. With this in place, you'll have enough to get a sneak peek at using what you created to insert and retrieve data from a database. While EF Core can interact with many databases, I'll be using SQL Server Local DB, which gets installed with Visual Studio. Let's definitely start with a quick overview of what EF Core is before we get coding. Entity Framework Core, or EF Core, is an evolution of the .NET Data Access Framework, which has been around since 2008 and evolving and improving dramatically over the years. EF Core is on the same release cadence as .NET itself. So EF Core 8 was released in November 2023 along with .NET 8. And I also want to make sure you're aware of the fact that EF Core 8 is often referred to just as EF8. So you'll probably notice I go back and forth throughout this course. EF Core encompasses a set of .NET APIs for performing data access in your software, and it is the official data access platform for Microsoft. It's used in millions of applications, and it's cross-platform. You can build and run EF Core-based APIs or applications on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, and even run them inside of Docker containers, whether on-premises or in the cloud. Object Relational Mappers, or ORMs, are designed to reduce the friction between how data is structured in a relational database and how you define your classes. Without an ORM, we typically have to write a lot of code to transform database results into instances of the types in our software. But an ORM allows us to express our queries using our classes, and then the ORM itself builds and executes the relevant SQL for us, as well as materializing objects from the data that come back from the database. It also allows you to store and update and even delete data in the database. Using an ORM can really eliminate a slew of redundant data interaction coding tasks, and in doing so, EF Core can really enhance developer productivity. It also provides consistency in the tasks that it does, rather than having various members of your team invent their own means of designing their data access. While a typical ORM infers that the classes and database tables are of a similar structure, EF Core has a mapping layer in between, and that gives us a lot more flexibility in how to get from objects to tables and from object properties to table columns. And EF Core allows you to connect to a variety of data stores, most of them relational databases. While Microsoft maintains rich providers for SQL Server and SQLite, an in-memory provider for very specialized testing needs, and even one for Cosmos DB, there are many other third-party providers as well, some commercial and some from the community. Microsoft has even created a provider for Azure Cosmos DB, Microsoft's document database in the cloud. This allows you to leverage your existing knowledge of EF Core to interact with Cosmos DB instead of having to learn yet another client API. If you're already familiar with EF Core 8 is mostly backwards compatible with the previous iteration. The documentation always has a detailed list of breaking changes. However, if you watch the earlier versions of my EF Core courses, you'll find that this fundamentals course will address topics and features that are new to EF8. Let's be sure you've got your development environment set up properly so you can use EF Core. Developing with EF Core requires the relevant version of the .NET SDK. EF Core 8 will only run on .NET 8. For those of you building or maintaining Windows Forms or WPF, Those do run on .NET, so it's possible to use the latest EF Core with those applications as needed. You can get the latest version of the .NET Software Development Kit, or SDK, from the .NET website. While I do a lot of my own app development with EF Core using Visual Studio Code on my MacBook, in this course, I'll be using Visual Studio 2022 on Windows, which gives us a lot more bells and whistles. And because I'm using EF8 and .NET 8, this requires at least version 17.8 of Visual Studio 2022, which was released along with .NET 8 and EF8 in late 2023. If needed, you can get a free community version of Visual Studio 2022 to follow along, and you can find that at visualstudio.com. I'll be using SQL Server Local DB for the data persistence. This is a lighter weight and free version of SQL Server that gets installed with Visual Studio. It's not for production, it's just for development. And you don't need to pre-install EF Core 8. That comes as a NuGet package that you'll add to your project. So while there's so much more I'd love to tell you about EF Core 8, I think it'll be more fun to just get coding. Once you've got your development environment set up, we can get to work building the solution in Visual Studio. The application we'll be building is for a book publishing company that only publishes books with single authors. It's a good thing that this company wasn't publishing the Entity Framework books that I co-authored with Rowan Miller a while back. Those were published by O'Reilly, and they don't have such a silly rule. We'll begin by working with authors and books, and then as the course evolves, we'll add more features into the application while you're learning how to leverage more of EF Core's functionality. The solution you'll start with, and again, you can find that in the Before folder for this module in the downloads, has a console project called Publisher Console and a class library project called Publisher Domain. The Publisher Domain project is for the business logic of the application, and I like to refer to that as the domain of the problem that I'm solving. The dictionary definition of domain is a specified sphere of activity or knowledge. And because I also do a lot of work with domain-driven design, it's my natural instinct to use that term throughout my software projects. With the solution open in Visual Studio, you can see that the Publisher Domain class library project targets Net 8.0. It has two classes in it, author and book, and the classes are pretty basic. Author has an ID, the author's first and last names, and a list of books written by the author. I'm also instantiating the books property using an auto-initializer, so I don't have to worry about errors trying to interact with a null collection later on when I'm coding. And this is a common coding practice. The book class has the book's ID property, its title, publish date, and notice that this is a date-only type, and it's finally supported in EF Core 8. We also have the book's price, a reference to the author type, and an explicit author ID property as well. And remember that this publisher only allows one author per book, and you can see that the book class reflects that. If you're following along in Visual Studio and seeing warnings in the author and book classes that talk about nullability, just ignore them for now. I will explain them much later on in the course in the module about additional mappings, but for now you can ignore them because they won't impact the demos. The console project also targets .NET 8, and it's defined as an executable. And I've already added a reference to the Publisher Domain project. The console project is the solution's executable, and it should be marked as the startup project, which will be important when you run this solution a little further on in this module. Other than that, this is still in the default state after I created it from the project template, so the program file has its default code. Note that the Visual Studio 2022 template uses minimal APIs, which means that there are a few things that will look different for you if you've been using .NET in the past. You can check out Microsoft's documentation on minimal APIs.